Hello everyone, welcome to my next stream. I will warn everyone now, I'm really not feeling very well. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, but I'm here anyway, so let's go for it. Yeah, I've literally got a mild temperature and feel like crap, but we'll be okay. So we've got a whole selection of books to look at today. They are mostly 1930s, although there's a bit of pre-1930s in there too. Yeah, we're going to look at 1930s kid stuff because I like looking at cute kid stuff, but I will warn people that there's some blatant racism in this one, and I will warn people now. This bottom one, that's like the Boys and Girls book of 1938, has a Rupert the Bear comic running through it. And in this comic, they meet a very stereotypically drawn black person who's described as a cannibal and a savage. And yeah, it's exactly what you're imagining, so I'm going to try to avoid it, but some of the pages may contain concerning depictions of people. Also, hi She Believer and hi Katie. We have a Taz today. Taz! Taz! He does not want to say hello, he's fast asleep. Say hi. Taz just looks at me like, why would you awaken me? I was so happy asleep. Hello. He is a good dog. He's a very sleepy dog today. But yeah, I've also run out of squash, so I might ask West to grab me a squash in a sec. You'll see your magic West hand appear. I'm going to have to keep drinking. Hi Chaos! Yep, he is old and it's hot, and I'm just too hot today. So I'm going to start with the Boys and Girls book of 1938. So to put it in some historical context, this was published a year before World War II. And I am always too hot. There's going to be some stuff that's going to be like, well, that's definitely leading up to World War II. Chaos, I'm nowhere near as hot, normally this hot. My temperature's over 37 degrees, that's not a good sign. This book has been drawn in, but it's a kid's book from the 1930s. But I do personally like this one, where they've decided that what this pirate really needed was blusher and lipstick. So, mainly in this book, it's just a collection of stories. And then it's got like cute little comic strips that aren't particularly funny, but they do a good job. I mean, all pirates do know blusher. I mean, blusher was definitely a man's thing at points, I'm just saying. So a pirate wearing blusher would not be completely out of... But yeah, so this has got like books about pirates, it's got books about like it's got sci-fi, but it's sci-fi that they're saying is in 1948. And they were really hyped about how it was going to change between now and 1948. I'm going to show you this Rupert Bear bit. Let's say the comic goes all the way through it, but I just really like the car they've got. We're still on pirates at the moment. In this, it does have a section of cars of yesteryear, which, considering this is 1938, you're talking carriage conversions, which are very cool. I should have put bookmarks in this, but I've been ill and therefore have not. We're still on Pirates of the Main, to be fair. I think it's like the longest story in here. Here we go. So this one has like various things to make, and I know no power under bookmarks. I'm going to add these to my list of things to make at some point. So this one's got a model for a little carousel, which I think is super cute and I really want to make anyway. The Legend of Pegasus. And then you've got things like this, which... The fact it's in a boys and girls book is pretty good actually, but it's got Ships of Today, today being 1938. And it's got a lovely selection of drawn, hang on this page. The Legend of Pegasus is a bit long to read, but I can definitely put it, and then it's got another thing to make. which is made out of a lot of matchboxes. Oh, I'll show you a good cartoon with pigs in. I mean, that is how, this is the one with the cool carpet stars. That is how today was traditionally written. It's only been in like recent times. I like the cartoon, don't read the poem, it's a bit sad. I can scan it. I need to do a load of scanning in at some point. Then we have a section of sports on wheels. So I'll show you the pictures first and then I'll do some reading. Which I love the selection of sports on wheels they think of. And so, it says, when the winter changes into spring and the snow has disappeared, many of the sports we love so well are pushed aside for another winter. Toboggans and sledges are stored away into attics. Snowmen are almost forgotten about, but the keen skier is not daunted by the change of season. He produces a novel type of ski which is shorter in length and fitted with two rubber-tied wheels like a child's scooter. They've got wheels. They're basically like roller skates, kind of, but super long. When strapped to each foot like a snow ski, he careers down streets or specially constructed indoor slopes and again enjoys the thrills of this winter sport. There you go, Katie. Young people who do not own polo ponies or, as yet, do not have the skill in horsemanship have successfully tried out another new diversion of polo. Their mounts, in inverted commas, are bicycles and they ride around the field, restricting themselves to the rules and regulation of the senior game as far as possible and introduce new ones to make the game as skillful as possible. Chaos be nice. For example, one rule in the bicycle polo is you must not strike the ball when you have a foot on the ground. This rule would be ridiculous if it was included in horse polo. It is vegan polo stars. It feels somewhat along the lines of Muggle Quidditch, but much better and less problematic. Still yet another sport diverted from its usual channel by the yachtsman with a mechanical turn of mind is the light framework of wood or iron constructed to resemble the deck and sails and riggings of a yacht, which is mounted on 4 bicycle or small motor wheels. The yacht is driven by the sails over the sands and any flat country and steered by tiller-shaped steering gear attached to the back wheels. This sport is called land sailing and comes as much as a foe, having its own regattas in which you have no fear in getting wet if the boat overturns. It's kind of like a hipster sport these days with fixies being most common. Honestly, I feel like someone is probably still playing bike polo out there. Once a year, the children of New York and America have their own speed trials and championships. Here you go, Cass, I hope you know all about this. They are, of course, too young to drive automobiles or motorcycles, so they build their own speedsters, as they're called, pillars, which is a plank of wood with a box nail to one end and an axle and 2 wheels fastened by a pivot to the other end. A second axle and 2 more wheels are nailed on to the end under the box and the pillar is complete. Propelled by a comrade pushing at the back or allowed to run down the long slope, these speedsters sometimes reach a speed of about 25 miles an hour. The competitor or driver steering with his feet on a pivoted axle or by string attached to same. The winners receiving a huge cake and all sorts of good things to eat make a small boy's keen competitors and deadly rivals, and furnish the spectators with much excitement and many thrills. The grown-ups too have a new diversion in the shape of the midget motor car, or Doodlebug as it's called. Doodlebug very quickly came to mean something different. The car has invaded the cinder track in place of motorcycles, but this dirt track fan does not lose any thrills or spills by such a changeover. So it shows the pictures of what they're called in pillars, but I would just call them boxcars. Doodlebug, yeah, it was basically it was a self-propelled bomb that had made a weird little noise, and it was good when you could hear it because that meant it was still flying. The moment it stopped making noise was when the engine had run out and it dropped. But Doodlebug is just a good word. I'm going to show people this just because it's some beautiful pictures. And I like showing people pretty pictures with some birds. They're meant to be birds of all nations, but they're not a diverse bunch, both most of them European. The Adventures of Cubby, who is a lion cub. I'll show you Cubby. Cubby's cute. There's Cubby riding a horse, because of course a lion cub can ride a horse. But yeah, most of this is just big stories. It's got like Black Beauty and all sorts. They do look more mouse-like, but I'm pretty sure they're meant to be a lion cub. Hence the name Cubby. So it has a couple of sections of in a country lane. So this section is on how to tell different types of trees. Now a bit later we will look at another book, which is this red one here, which is I think called A Boy's Own Nature Book. Something along those lines. So apparently boys and girls are allowed to know trees, but only boys are allowed to know nature. It goes on. Oh, here's a good one. Building a ship will test your patience. That's definitely one we're going to do at some point. Nature's big and scary. Well, there you go. I'll show you cute pictures too. We've got zoo babies. I don't know why they chose these zoo babies. We have a baby reindeer and a young lion. It says for the reindeer, "But I'm a baby reindeer now, but when I'm big and strong, I'll get a job with Santa Claus and pull his sledge along." And young lions are, "The baby lions play rough, they bite and scratch each other, but they get soundly spanked if they get mixed and bite their mother." What is a squadger? I don't know, I haven't actually read this one. It's a very short story. Would you like a story? Is it story time? "I say, Michael, have you ever heard of a..." I'm going to go squadger. If anyone's got a better pronunciation of this, please do say. "Squadger?" said Michael. "A squadger? Well, I know Dodger and Lodger, and even Mr. Todger, but not a squadger, no." "Well," said Margaret, "it's a sort of thing, you know, and lives in forests, I think. We ought to get one, and then we can present it to the zoo and become famous." "Right," agreed Michael. "We will start at once. The first thing we do is to get a cage and then go down to the forest." So off they went, Mr. Todger, of course, with them, because you must know by this time they couldn't possibly sing, at least properly, without Mr. Todger. Mr. Todger is a dog, for anyone wondering. They came at last to the forest, Michael and Margaret carrying the cage, and Mr. Todger leaping about looking at anything and everything that smelt interesting. After a long time searching under toadstools and poking into bushes, they found that squadgers were apparently not at home. They were just thinking of giving up, and the ground under Michael's feet suddenly began to heave about like a young earthquake. "My word, whatever is happening?" said Margaret. "I wonder if we found a volcano." They ran away a little distance, and as they got far enough to feel safe, Mr. Todger's head slowly heaved up through the ground with an inquiring look in his eye. "What are you doing there, Mr. Todger?" said Margaret severely. "You look as if you were stuck in a hole or something, and certainly isn't a hole made for a person your size." "Well," tittered Mr. Todger, brushing a few hundred ants and a pound or two of sand out of his eyes, "if you must know, it's rabbits." It's okay, Taz has just gone to the chair on the other side. "You okay there?" He's cuddling up in my cardigan, he's happy. "Why," shouted Michael, "how silly of you, going down that tiny hole for rabbits, when you know you can't possibly catch rabbits only on the 1st of the month." "Well," said Mr. Todger, "there certainly was a rabbit here. Anyway, I saw his tail ramp, and I nearly had him too, 1st of the month or no. Now be a good chap, Mr. Todger, and come help us find a squodger. We're going to give one to the zoo and become famous. A squodger, muttered Mr. Todger. Dear, dear, that's the thing to clean wet pavements. No, no, laughed Margaret, that's the squeegee. Well, said Mr. Todger, it's nearly the same. They're both spelt with a squee. However, he was really quite nice and readily agreed to help in the search, and off they went once more. Though they never actually explains what one is. I'm sorry. If it has any more of that story, I will let you know. Here's one for Katie. How to make a windmill. And it's got an abridged version of Black Beauty as well. Which, the greatest animal story of all time, apparently. And it's a very long one, so I'm going to skip past it. And we're just going to ignore that Rupert the Bear cartoon. Here we go, back in the country lane we have some animals. I will say now, I'm afraid these are only English animals, so there are no possums, I'm afraid, Chaos. Also, someone's already done the drawing in this. Are there crosswords? Yes, there's a couple of crosswords for it, but they've all been filled in. And then more animal illustrations. I like this badger here. He's very cute. I'm sorry, it is very British centric. And then, because we're in 1938, we have Fighting Planes of the Nations. And if you spot the German one, you might recognise the flag from somewhere. There were, Katie, but I'm skipping that page because it has a very unfortunate picture from the Rupert the Bear one. If I find another crossword, I will show you. And one thing I'll say of note is for the German one, there's number 5 is a German Heinkel. Germany, since the war, because remember at this point there's only one, has not produced fighting aeroplanes until recently. I wonder why. They weren't planning to invade anyone in 1938. The machine shown is a biplane of 750 horsepower, which gives it a speed of 215 miles an hour. Several new hush-hush fighters are being built in Germany. And it's just like, looking at it from like a modern point of view, it's like, Jesus. We technically weren't in World War II yet, but it was, people knew something was coming. But yeah, plane spotting was, a very acceptable hobby, especially for young boys. We'll do the American one as well, just for the Americans in the audience. Number 7 is the American Curtiss biplane with retractable wheels and is a very fast machine. It has 2 guns and carries bombs. There you go, Chaos. And just so exactly. And finally we'll do the English one. Number 1 is a fine example of a flying machine. It is the British Gloucester Gladiator and is a single bay biplane. It is fitted with 2-way wireless and 4 Vickers guns. With 730 horsepower engine, it flies over 250 miles per hour. So it does have another Mr. Todger story, but it's got nothing to do with the Todger, so I don't think it's ever going to explain that one. Oh, here you go. I'll read you Timid Ted because it's a cute story, but I'll show you the pictures first. Biplanes are valid, that is true. If our planes were so badass, we wouldn't have needed America to bail us out in World War II. Oh, that one's a complicated one. I'm not going into it. Anyway, let's read Timid Ted. Alas, Timid Ted couldn't stand on his head till he went in the garden one day. Till he went in the garden to watch his nuts harden, and saw a wee goblin at play. Said the goblin, tut tut, how I should like a nut. I wish I were a big boy like you. I'll each one, said Teddy. I've had one already. The biggest I'll find is for you. Said the goblin, oh yoicks, that's the kind that I likes. And he capered and stood on his head. And he was not even wobbling. I wish I were a goblin. If you please, will you teach me, said Ted. And the very next day, all the children at play were amazed at the antics of Ted. And they said, did you ever think Ted was so clever? Who taught him to stand on his head? Oh, Chaos, if you're wanting British authors writing in a condescending tone, wait till we read the nature book. I can guarantee you, it's the most. I stopped reading. I was reading bits of it and I just stopped because it was so condescending. It's like, can you not? Oh well, there was ever a person so clever. Oh, that's a song. I mean, so oh well, never was there ever a person so clever as Ted. Not Americans deserve to be spoken to in condescending tones. Now, this is especially for stars. We have some racing motor cars. That has various bits on how they're put together. Yeah, Ted doesn't quite work on it, I'm afraid, Katie. So, I should read you some facts about cars. Modern racing motor cars are wonderful examples of the motor engineering trade. The best known are the British ERAs, the Italian Maseratis, the German Mercedes and auto unions. Yes, motor, cars, they're two separate words still. There does seem to be a big thing of words that had dashes just got put together at some point, and I'm curious to when that happened. Auto union for stars, okay. So, the British home of motor racing is, of course, the world-famous track at Brooklands. It is a thrilling sight to watch the cars go hurtling around the sauce-like track at speeds of well over 100 miles per hour. Stars, is Brooklands still a place? Or is that one closed? I mean, the cars are definitely a thing at this point, Katie. In this, it's got cars of yesteryear, and they are definitely carriages, including an electric car, which I will show people later. The record speed for Brooklands is nearly 140 miles per hour. It's still there, but in a state of disrepair. So I actually know about this because I live with stars and therefore know a lot about cars, more than I'd ever need to know. So a lot of old racing tracks don't exist as racing tracks anymore. But a lot of modern ones, like, literally down the road from us. No, forgotten it. Begins with a G. Are Goodwood, thank you, West. Are ex-World War II airports. And Silverstone, I think, is also similar, where they basically needed a ton of airports because obviously they needed a ton of airplanes in World War II, and then didn't know what to do with afterwards, and race tracks needed big spaces that were flat, and it all worked out quite nicely. We have a mention of America, it's all good. Another famous racing track is Indianapolis in America, where a race of 500 miles is fought every year at over 100 miles per hour. Yeah, Silverstone was an airport, Goodwood was, and I think there's a couple of others. I don't even watch car racing, but I do know about history. No mistakes are allowed when speeds of 150 to 200 miles an hour are involved. There would be a bad crash. So as you can imagine, back in the day, car crashes were significantly worse, and health and safety wasn't so much a thing, and people died. Like, it was not unheard of. Here we go, I'm going to read this bit. British racing cars have not been very successful for a number of years, not because they were of no use, but because the Continental racers had bigger and more powerful engines. In the last 2 or 3 years, we have regained our supremacy, mainly due to the fact we've been able to increase the power development of our smaller engines, so once more, British cars are to be feared in the racing world. And so the illustration is of a typical track racing car with various details are shown in the cutaway parts. And just because stars will want to know, it has an 8-cylinder overhead valve engine, it is supercharged, it has a carburettor, hydraulic brakes, and a snap-open petrol filler cap. And then we've got a section of games to play at your party, which are all very ridiculous. However, I've got a favourite quote from this. That's fancy tech even now. That is true. Well, the fact they've got an electric car in here as a car from yesteryear, whereas electric cars are seen like fancy modern stuff, always makes me laugh. There you go. I'm going to tell you about a game called Answering the Adverts, mostly because it starts with this. If you don't get a laugh out of this merry game, then you ought not to attend any more parties. The guests sit round the room, a fair distance from each other. Each is given a slip of paper and a pencil, while the one chosen as editor stands at the centre. Now then, he says, you've all read advertisements in the newspapers. You know how they say, does your hair fall out? Or do your feet ache when you go for a walk? Or are your teeth going brown? I want you to write down something like that. The editor waits while this is done, and he tells the guests to fold their slip and pass it to the one next to them. Now I want you to write what you have seen in advertisements as answers to some of the questions often asked, he says. When this is done, each person folds a slip and in turn reads the question answer. You'll roar when some of them are read out. I feel like one day, instead of doing Jackbox, we need to do some more party games. I don't know how we could do that, but I feel like this would be hilarious. And if you don't find it funny, then you're just not allowed to attend any more parties. Yeah, it is a very primitive Jackbox. Party games, I mean, a lot of Jackbox games are kind of semi-based off old party games. My ear is making weird whooshing noises. It's very distracting. Excuse me a second. But yeah, Katie, as you say, electric vehicles with milk floats, you don't really imagine them being standard cars. We've got the section of Captain Wilcoxon, Atlantic Flying Ace. I'm not going to read all about him, but basically he flew some planes. You'd like to see people in the 1930s doing rapping robots. Me too. I'm pro this. And we've got some bits and pieces. And then we've got about submarines, because you need to know about submarines. I do like how they're clearly trying to make sure there's educational bits in this and not just a compilation of stories. And we're going to skip past Rupert the Bear. Another famous name made in news, which I think stars will recognise, is Sir Malcolm Campbell, world's ace speedster. He holds the world water speed record, which he made last September by travelling 129.5 miles an hour, and he holds the world land speed record of 301.13 miles an hour. At this point he was 52, which is pretty impressive. There is a puzzle picture in the bottom here, which I'll scan in so people can do if they so wish. It's finding things in the picture. It's quite a fun one. There's a book called The Boy with the Clever Fingers. Not a book, a story, which is about scouting. But one thing I do like about it is it tells you how to make a hut. Because obviously this is information you may need at some point in your life. The current land speed record is double that. Honestly, I'm amazed it's not faster. But that's pretty impressive that he managed to get even half that in the 1930s. I'll show everyone the comic. I mean, Little House on the Prairie is one of those book series that I really love, but also it's just like, oof, when you like read some bits, it's like not exactly what I expected on one day. There's also the pantomime puzzle, which again I can scan in. If you don't know what a pantomime is, you're probably too American. It's a play. Now I'm going to read you a poem called Sinking, which is going to be brilliant because I'm really bad at pronouncing my THs. Oh, why didn't you sink, said the voice of my ink. You pick up every sink the wrong way. I shall soon be a ghost, said the voice of my toast, if you sit there sinking all day. You like the kitty going hiking. Ah, do you know what pantomime that is, Katie? Also next door to it is The Foursome, a story of four mischievous puppies, which is a bit long to read now, but I can scan it in if people need. Here you go, Cars of Yesteryear. This is what I was talking about earlier. So as you can see, they're called carriage conversions. Yes, Kate, that's correct, Stick Whittington. So carriage conversions are basically, they took a carriage and put an engine in it. So these are like the oldest cars you'll see. And as you can see, this one here is an electric car, because the old character versions were just as much electric as not. I really like character conversions, they're very pretty. Chaos says she's sorry her head is empty besides making sure her honey has dinner and his slippers when he gets home, so she can never understand now I'm like a pantomime. To be honest, pantomimes, you would probably find them very strange and weird. What's managed to get into your head, Katie? Oh, no, she wouldn't. Oh, yes, she would. Oh, Dick Whittington. Fair enough. Dick Whittington's a good one. There is a play in this. It's really called Try Acting This Play with Your Friends. Wes, do you want to act a play with me?
Do I have to be on camera?
I don't think you have to do the play.
Okay.
Maybe that could be a stream for future. When Katie's visiting. How does that sound, Katie? It's called The King of the Cut Purse Court, and has characters such as King Edward the Sixth, Sally Snatcham, a thief, John Snatcham, a lost child, Tim Plenty, a poor boy, Francis Catchley, a bully, Nancy Alma, a poor girl, Father Peter, an old priest. You're going to be in a play, Katie? You do have friends, Chaos. I'm one of them. Oh, we've also got jokes you can tell. Would you like some jokes? So the first one is an elephant saying, "What have you done to my umbrella?" "Well, Auntie, you see, I tickled its ribs and it laughed so much it split its sides." Okay, I'm going to have to show you the pictures for most of these to make sense, I've realised. So I'll show you the pictures first. Katie sounds terrified. So the elephant one says, "Can you stop my tap making this mess?" "Certainly, Mum." And says, "A hold all trunk." "Oh, well, I'm glad you've got no male friends, Chaos. That would be, entirely inappropriate." "Where are all those beans I've left on that plate?" "I've eaten them, Mum. They're all has-beens now." There you go, some amazing jokes there. Got some more party games. I'll show people the pictures for the boat race game because it looks hilarious. Again, I feel like we should do some of these ones. I'm going to read you out the game called Cockfighting because it sounds fucking hilarious and it's called Cockfighting. It's in reference to birds, but it's so funny. Two competitors at a time take part in this very amusing game. Each is given a walking stick and they sit upon the floor facing one another, their knees up and their toes touching one another's. The walking stick is placed underneath the knees and held by the hands. On the word go, each player endeavours to overbalance the other by placing the toe of his or her shoe underneath that of the opponent and lifting it up. The competitors must keep hold of the stick and the use of hands is not allowed to be used. It's the most amusing game, as those who endeavour to overbalance their opponents often balance themselves in the attempt. There are a few useful hints to remember when playing the game. Do not take the feet off the ground, slide the feet about, keeping the heels still. It is best to wear soft shoes. Let your opportunity do the trying, then await your let your opponent do the trying, then await your opportunity, tip him over. I'll show you the picture. Honestly, I feel like this would be a hilarious game to play. Ah, yes, some cats, Katie. And then we've got wildflowers for your country knowledge. There was a big push to get, especially children who lived in towns, to know more about the countryside. It's quite cute. We've got make your own dancing dolls. I do apologise for the Rupert the Bear image there. And then we have Guns of a Fighting Plane, because again, we're about to go into World War II. And everyone should know how Guns on a Fighting Plane works. You're threatened by new information. What were you thinking? Do I want to know what you're thinking for Rupert, Katie? then we also have locomotives. Doesn't really say much about any of them, to be honest. Hell yeah, trains. I will scan the trains in, chaos. Oh, here we go. So this was it. It was 1949. They will find a linking ray. And I like it because it's got this... Sorry, using camera. The standard sci-fi flying suits that I love as a concept. Here we go. It's a better picture of them there. So it was just a thing of speculative sci-fi in the 1930s. For some reason, a lot of it was based on like fighting future space wars. And so the main character in this is called Dick, which is kind of hilarious. Such as the line, Dick felt himself beating vainly at the wind. I love the like art style of speculative fiction. You found it quite offensive. I'm shocked that you found the offensive picture that I warned people was going to be offensive, Katie. But yeah, so that is the Boys and Girls Book of 1938. I'm still feeling like shit. So one thing I do have to show, which is not a book, it's a 1939 to 1940s diary. It's actually got the original pen in. It's never been used. And so this is something I own. I feel like at one point I will, and it's got a whole blotting thing that's also never been used. It's just like a nice little thing. You can't really see it on the front. But yeah, it's just, can you see the pen? You can. Should have had something else here as well. I'm not sure what it was. I'm assuming a pencil. There's the pen. Looks quite a fancy one. It doesn't have a lid. And it doesn't screw. Half an hour later. But I'm not sure what it's meant to have in it because it's not the kind that has the ink cartridges in. Also has a little bit on the side as well. You know what you want to search for, but you don't want to search for it. Does it begin with a G? Because if it is, you're thinking of Noddy, not Rupert the Bear. That's me being subtle, by the way. Have a proper look and let me know. Thank you, stars. So, we're going to ignore the last page of this book because it's horribly offensive. But this is just a little education book. I don't know exactly when it's from, but I'm assuming the 1930s or 40s just because it's small and lacks paper. Also, the last thing it mentions is the coronation of King George. Oh no, there's a Noddy game. You should be okay, Katie. I think it was in the 90s that they changed it to the Naughty Teddies from what it was before. But here you go. So we're going to tell you some things you should know as a child in the 1930s, 1940s. So you should know addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. It has an explanation of money. So for those who don't know, pre-decimalisation in the UK, we had farthings, pence, shillings and pounds. I'm going to sit up a bit so I can show things a bit close to camera. As always, I will try to scan things in. One thing I do like is it has a Roman notation. It's still not going to do it properly because it's not focusing. So it has a selection of weights and measurements. Okay, it seems to feature teddies. At some point I will get a second camera. But I already bought this camera for this stream, and I'm not going to get another one for a little while. Maybe when I become like Twitch famous, because that's totally going to happen at some point. And in case anyone wondering, the measurements in this are inches, feet, yards, poles, chains, furlongs, lengths and fathoms. It tells you how to work out percentages. This is a useful little handbook, to be honest. One thing it does also have, so I'm not going to sit up for this one. Don't know if you can see. You can do this in a hot tub. I'm not putting any of these books near a hot tub, Katie. I have no issue with me being in a hot tub, apart from I've already got a temperature. I don't think it'd help. It has tables of the metric system. And it just ends with French money, because obviously the only reason you'd need to know the metric system is if you're going to France, because we'd never use that here. So I'm going to have to keep drinking. It has a selection of geographical definitions. It's a therapeutic hot tub. I love hot tubs, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, the reason I've dated this to late 1930s is because it has a list of kings and queen of England, and the last person on this list is George VI, which is 1937. And then it's in its historical events. Again, it's got the last one is the coronation of King George VI. And it doesn't mention like a big war of some sort, so I feel like we're probably before 1939. Don't know why, but I feel like they might mention it if England went to war. There's a selection of abbreviations, which are pretty much all the same as they are now. So like HRH, each His or Her Royal Highness, HMS, His Majesty's Ship, AB, Able Seaman. These things don't change. Oh, here you go. People like this. It's got a section on sort of some grammatical and spelling difficulties. There is the form of the pronoun they, their, them. The Y is changed to an I. Their signifies belonging to them. Their books equals belonging to them. So if anyone tries to say that their or them being a pronoun is a modern thing, I don't think it is. Admittedly, also Shakespeare used it, which is even older in this book. It's weird thinking of anyone but the current queen being head of the monarchy. I mean, it wasn't that long. I mean, she would have been her early teens, I think, at this point. I only remember that because she did a speech for Children's Hour in the war. I think she was in her teens at that point. Maybe she was like pre-teens or teens. It wasn't long till she became queen. Here, I'm going to use some advice on spelling, because I'm so good at spelling I should be giving people advice. The best way to learn how to spell is to read a short, interesting sentence or story from a book, then try to write it from memory. It's just remember how words are spelled. It's just that easy. 1950s, yeah. So it's just post-war, because during the war, she was working on Land Rovers and doing cool shit, and then she became queen and stopped doing cool shit as much. Disappointing, really. Afterwards, compare your work with the original, and if you have made a spelling mistake, write the word correctly several times. Not as a task, but as an exercise, just as you would play over and over again a difficult passage of music, if you're learning to play an instrument. So here's the thing. I'm awful at spelling. And I can guarantee you writing a word out multiple times will not help you if you're bad at spelling. I have a section on geometry and measuration notes. So lines are straight or curved. It's basically geometry and how you measure things, including area. Did someone look up when non-Euclidean geometry became a thing? If I wrote it enough, do I think it'd become muscle memory? Possibly, but not really, because that's not exactly how it works. But I feel like we're sort of on the cusp of non-Euclidean geometry at this point. But I don't know exactly if we've hit it yet, to be common knowledge. That's me being a maths nerd, which is the closest you'll ever get to me being a maths nerd. Time in different parts of the world. Oh, here you go. How to address a person or persons. So, status of person. Tradesman, Mr. John Smith, dear sir. Gentleman, John Smith, Esquire, dear sir. Professional, Dr. John Smith or John Smith, Esquire, MD, dear sir. Yeah, people were looking at it before, but it became more common knowledge later. Lady, Mrs. Jane Smith, dear madame. Clergyman, Reverend J. Smith, Rev. Sir. A firm, Mrs. J. Smith and Son, dear sirs. Member of Parliament, John Smith, Esquire, MP. Sir, you don't need to say dear, sir, to MPs, apparently. I like that. It's like, I don't actually respect you enough to say dear, it's just, sir, have you considered you are a dickhead? Lord Mayor, the Right Honourable Lord Mayor of blank. My Lord Mayor, and you should end it apparently with, your Lordship's obedient servant. Hyperbolic geometry is in the 1930s. Okay, so yes, it was a thing, but it probably wasn't in this book. And we've got some notes on etiquette. Would people like to learn about etiquette? I think people need to know about etiquette. If making an introduction, the gentleman should be introduced to the lady, not the lady to the gentleman. If both of the same sex, present the inferior in social position to the superior. Permission must always be obtained before a gentleman is presented to a lady. Anyone meeting at a house of a mutual friend and not introduced should not claim acquaintance if they are to meet elsewhere. When out walking with a friend, if you are met or joined by a third party, it is not necessary to introduce the one to the other. Letters of introduction should be sent by post, enclosing your own card, and not by personal delivery. This is, however, not always convenient. If anxious to honour the person introduced, invite him to dinner and have some friends to meet him. Morning calls are usually made between the hours of 2 and 4. When returning purely complimentary calls, you may leave your card without going in. All visits of congratulation or condolence should be paid within a few days of the event that occasions them. On making morning calls, a gentleman should not leave his hat in the hall, but take it to the room with him, holding it in his hand during his brief stay. Leave your umbrella in the hall. Morning between 2 and 4 sounds like your kind of morning. There you go, Katie. Perfect for you. When a lady visitor leaves the drawing room, it is polite to rise. It is bad form to look at your watch during a visit. In conversation, avoid political and religious subjects, and never interrupt another person when speaking. Do not converse in a language which any in the company does not understand. Avoid whispering, as it is bad taste. At evening parties, put on your gloves before entering the room. Pay your respects to the lady of the house on entering, and do not remain too close unless you are on very familiar terms of friendship with the hostess. Except in the case of necessity, never stop a businessman in the street. You must speak with him, walk on his direction, state your business briefly, apologising for the detention. Never rock the boat, don't be foreign. Well, you'll find with foreign, you're just not allowed to speak foreign. Let's get it right, Katie. In walking with a gentleman your superior in age or station, give them the place of honour by taking yourself to the outer side of the pavement. In walking with a lady, always take the outside of the pavement. Wives of junior members of the family prefix their husbands' Christian names, e.g. Mrs. Alfred Smith, and this socially they retain in widowhood, although legally they are now Mrs. Agnes Brown or Smith, etc. After the death of the head of a family, his wife uses a Christian name, and the wife's new head becomes Mrs. Smith, or whatever it may be. So there you go. Now you know how to be appropriate. And then the last bit is how to read your gas meter, which to be honest is quite useful. To be honest, the last bit is another but I'm not showing it up because it is the races of man. And we don't need to read that because it's bollocks. And splitting the race of man into colours is bollocks. So yeah, we're ignoring that last bit. Let's look at something more fun. Actually, this one's not more fun, but it is interesting to look at. Gas meters to erase them. So this is just a dense first French book. Now, I want you to imagine if you in school learnt French, or if you would learn any languages, like the first bits you learned. So, you know, it'd be like, your first lesson would be, bonjour, ça va? And that would be about it. Maybe, ça va bien, merci, or comme ci, comme ça. Yeah, really basic stuff. You'd have it written in English, you'd have it written in French, it'd be broken down. No, not in dense. Comment t'appelles-tu? Je m'appelle Katie. Exactly, like really basic stuff to start with. I'll show you the picture because the picture's nice. It has the different types of coinage. Super shiny. So. One thing I will say is there's no English. It's all in French. Somehow you're meant to work out what it says if you don't to understand French. There's like little bits of English, but nearly all of it is French. So, Le Puissance. Numéro 1. Paul, Cécile, Henri, Marie, Charles, Louise, Julie. Le père, la mère. Le père et la mère. Paul et Célie. Marie et Charles. Les jardins. La mansion. Les jardins et la maison. Un père et une mère. Un jardin et une maison. You get the idea. It literally just a list of French phrases that there's no way you're going to know what they mean unless you already speak French. So I don't understand how this could be a first French book. It also doesn't explain anything. Like, it doesn't explain why some of them are la, some of them are la. It's just like, just go with it. Just remember it. But yeah, it just keeps going, and it's just none of it explains anything. It just continues in French. Le père est un homme. Le père est un homme heureux. I do apologise for bad pronunciation here, by the way. But like, the first bits aren't even what we'd expect to be the first things of it. Just get on with it is better than gender, to be honest. I mean, that's fair. Just not having grammatical gender is better, to be honest, but you know. Monsieur Maurice Bontemps est le grand-père des enfants. Madame Madeleine de Bontemps est la grand-mère des enfants. La grand-mère. Japanese is good in that way. I mean, it's one of the few things English has probably got right. Henri, Cécile, Charles. Yeah, it's all the same names as well. There's only like 6 names that they use the entire thing. But it has exercises, which are questions. But again, you can only answer questions if you know enough French to know what the questions are asking you. So, qu'est-ce que les fleurs ornamentent? How are you going to know? But yeah, it doesn't get any easier. So my assumption is this is actually meant to be a book to have if you've got a teacher. Because, let's be honest, this is useless if you have it on its own. It's like completely pointless. So I imagine it's meant to have a teacher, but I also imagine some parent has bought this for a kid at some point and be like, there, learn French. It's like, no. So I'm afraid if you're not a boy, you have to leave now, because we're now on the Boy's Own Nature book, which is a very cute picture of a hedgehog on the front. I'm sure I could find some use for you, Chaos. I'm sure I could. I'm going to show you some beauty. Like, so this book is from someone called Trevor Wright, and I do like their handwriting. It's very fine handwriting. Yeah, I'm about to say it's pretty much everyone, isn't it? But I've got some pretty pictures in this book. I'll let you stay. acquire some gender. Hang on, I need to find the first bit. That's my personal. This is missing a bit. I'll read you some sections because you'll get the theme, very honest. He can totally read this book, let's be honest, he probably already has. If he hasn't, he doesn't need to. He is a man, he just knows the right answer. There you go. Oh, not your husband, obviously. So, the goose is the father bird, and the duck is a mother bird. For context, these are things that children have said, that are clearly foolish to children believe. The goose makes a cack-cack noise. The beak of a duck is not so long as a goose's beak. And one young naturalist affirmed, if you were to let ducks grow, they would grow into a goose. Surely a most confusing farmyard law. Another had observed that the goose warbles, but the pig walketh. Another more precise says, the goose has a knob on its beak. 'Tis all rot, I don't care, was the verdict I got from one boy of 9 when I tried to awaken his admiration for a flower. Oh, ain't it beautiful? He mimicked my voice. So I tried him with a little fact about the creatures and, later on, with a little elementary news of how rivers helped form the country, and found below his ill manners he had a mind which really enjoyed using. So this is written by the author about how all these poor city children just couldn't possibly appreciate the countryside or nature, and how she must teach them, and schools must. These few extracts will show you some young people what peculiar replies some children have sent in, and how they spend their country holiday. And I draw attention to this matter because it is my fervent wish that you at any rate will learn to observe intelligently and care for the sights, sounds, and occupation of nature. When you go into the country, that is, for those who live in towns and cities, you should spend your hours profitably by watching the birds and flowers, insects, fish, mammals, and other tenants of the countryside, all too numerous to mention. I mean, yeah, I also was brought up in the countryside, but I cannot imagine going on holiday to countryside and literally spending hours just watching stuff. Got games to play. Here you go. So, here then is Miss Bennet's sensible letter, and I want every one of you to read it carefully, wherever you happen to reside in town or country. My dear children, you will all soon be travelling to the country, where you will see new sights and hear new sounds, which will delight you. Instead of walking in the close, noisy streets, you will be able to play in the cool grass, and in the fields and hedges you will pick flowers and grasses which perhaps you've never seen before. So I am writing you a letter this year before your holiday, instead of in September, to tell you something that many wonderful and beautiful things you will be able to find in your country visit, if you will open your eyes and ears and use your hands patiently and gently. On your return, those of you who would like to do so can write a long letter telling me about the living and growing things which particularly interested you, and especially about those that were new to you. When you gather flowers, and of course you must never pick large bunches or throw them down in the road to die, poor things, you must try to think not only about their colour and scent, but also of the plants from which they come from, the places where they grow, and the flowers you most frequently find growing side by side. Of course you know that people and birds travel about and enjoy themselves, but plants seem to be happy in just growing and doing what they have to do, even though they always stay in one place. However, they do a great deal to make us, their travelling brothers, happy, for they furnish us with food, and even with materials for clothes, houses, furniture, and many other useful things. Look at the cottage gardens, and see how many plants there are, of which we eat some part, and find out, after wandering in the forest, the trees which supply wood for the beams of houses, or the wheels of carts, or for cricket bats. Oh dear, stop quoting awful songs, Chaos. But I just love how bloody condescending this is to children. It's like, oh, you precious little children who've never seen a plant before. It's like, even if you live in the middle of London, even if you live in East End London, you will have seen a plant. You'd be aware trees make wood. And it's just like, as to the animals, I think you would find your holiday spectacularly delightful if you set out determined to study some animal more than you have ever done before. You might choose the sheep, dog, or the rabbit, or the harvest mouse, or perhaps the rook or the squirrel. You may hear, if you ask, what the fox is at night. I mean, what does the fox say? And what his wife and babies are called. What little creatures it is that make small earth heaps in the fields. If you ever saw a little animal, you might be able to tell me what it was like. So for context, pre-1940s there was a big push to get children who lived in the cities to be able to go on holiday. They're often funded for by, I'm going to say posh women because that's the best description I give them, like upper middle class to upper class women who, well, they're being so kind to the poor children, you see. It was very condescending, the whole thing. This book is literally just a book to send to those children before they go on this holiday, which is just dump them in the countryside for a couple of days. And yeah, it's just awfully condescending. Just like the assumptions they make. Those are some nice pictures, but they're all in black and white. But I'll have to scan them in. But I'll show you the baby lamb. Baby lamb. Yes, Chaos trees make wood. Maybe you need to read this book and be condescended to. It's also very much like, we'll give you some lessons from nature. It's just like, wow, lamb. What month are we in? We're in August. So here's some things we should look for in August. Bramble, toadflax, and the traveller's joy in flower. The magpie moth upon the wing. First mushrooms appear. Robin commences his autumn song. The beautiful rosebay willow herb flowers. Young robins assume their first red breasts. Garden roses commence their autumn blossoming. The lengthened song period of the lark temporarily ceases. Make notes of the last cuckoo and swift singing. There you go. That's what you got to look for at the moment. You need to be consented to, but only by a particular wish one. I'm sure you do, Chaos. I'm sure you do. You don't think, well, that's why you need a book, Katie, because it's going to show you these things and how to identify them. Here you go. This is for Chaos. Got some bats. It does give a lot of information about bats, and then got hedgehogs and mice. And it goes through like multiple different animals that you would see in the countryside. And in some ways I do think it is a good book. It's also condescending as fuck, like. Should have colour plates in it apparently, but I don't know where. So I've just found this bit that I have to share, which is the dragonfly, the dandy of the insect world. Yes, hang on. I'm being offered. I'm assuming you mean a bat flew at you once. You're both very confused. I mean, bats crashing into people is very confusing. Are we sure the Pete Stay lady to write book? Well, supposedly it's by the main form of the book is by Percival Westall. SLSMBOU, which I don't actually know what that stands by. Oh, Robin Flew Into You. I don't remember. But I have another book to show you, which is also about identifying animals. Because apparently this is all that children in 1930s and 40s ever needed to do. You need to identify animals, planes and boats. As long as you can do those, you're fine. This book used to belong to someone called Jean M. Miller. Pop it there, please. Everyone say hi, stars.
Hello.
And it's about moths and caterpillars. It was a boring time. I mean, they're literally just about to go into World War II. I feel like they probably would rather it be boring. There's not much to look at in this book. I might just do more scanning in than anything. But one thing I do find interesting says, for night work, one of the most interesting of pursuits, the nature student must take out with him a bottle of sugaring mixture. Because obviously the only people who are going to look for moths are boys. A thick syrup is made of sugar and boiling water, or treacle will serve, in which a little rum or beer is mixed. This is spread with a bush on trees and palings just after sunset. A dark night should be chosen after a shower, and the months of June to September are the most productive. Then a tour of the places which have thus been baited will, if the night be prosperous, disclose many species, some overcome by the foods, others attacking it with adversity. Take care that the sugar mixture is strong smelling, as the scent which attracts. You don't need to ask your parents. At this point, you could just buy beer. Or you could go to pub. Ninja of Chaos. Behave. But it does have some nice plates, which watch you in black and white. Right, I'm going to pause there just for a couple of minutes, because it's been going on for just over an hour. Wes, could you put us on a break? Be good, be gay, do crimes. I'll be back in a little bit. Bye for now. See you in about 5 minutes, if that. So I apologise if there was a lack of music in that break. Apparently West didn't turn it back up after earlier fading it out. Also, Katie stopped swearing so much. Jesus. Katie's being a badass today. Here I am bringing you cute children's books and you're swearing in my chat. I don't actually mind. So, it's actually the last book we have to look at, and it's Mother Goose's Nursery Rhymes. You're so confused. As you should be, Katie, as you should be. This is from the early 1930s. Originally published in 1910s, but it was republished many times. Ooh, bless you, West. And I think the easiest way to do this is, I'm just going to read some random ones out. If people want to suggest page numbers, I'm happy to read out any that people particularly want on any page. I feel like we should start with Old Mother Goose. Old Mother Goose, when she wanted to wander, would ride in the air on a very fine gander. Where the goose had a house was built in a wood, an owl on the door for a porter stood. She had a son Jack, a plain-looking lad. He was not very good, nor not very bad. She sent him to market. A live goose he bought. "Here, mother," he said, "I will not go for naught." Jack's goose and her gander grew very fond. They'd both eat together or swim in one pond. Jack found one morning, as I have been told, his goose had laid him an egg of pure gold. Jack rode to his mother, the news for to tell. She called him a good boy, and said it was well. Jack sold his good egg to a rogue of I'm not saying that word, who cheated him out of half of its due. When Jack went courting a lady so gay, as fair as the lily and as sweet as the May, the word I'm not saying and the squire both came at his back, and began to bellabore the size of poor Jack. But old Mother Goose that instant came in, and turned her son Jack into feigned Harlequin. She then with her wand touched a lady so fine, and turned her at once into sweet Columbine. The golden egg in the sea was thrown away then, when Jack he jumped in, and got it again. And old Mother Goose, the goose saddled soon, and mounting its back, flew up to the moon. Who knows what you're up to, Katie? If anyone has any page suggestions, this goes up to page, let's see, bang it down, 267. Although actually they're not proper poems, they're sing-song stories. So actually we'll go up to the end of nursery rhymes. So any number up to 239. So 112 from West. So I do reserve the right not to read some of them. So we've got 12 Huntsmen or Ring the Bell. I'm going to do Ring the Bell because it's not about hunting. Ring the bell, knock at the door, draw the latch and walk in. There you go. Okay, I'm going to do page 13 and then 12 if they're... Actually, what's quite nice because 12 and 13 are the same poem. London Bridge is broken down, that's over my Lady Lee. London Bridge is broken down with the gay lady. How shall we build it up again? That's over my Lady Lee. How shall we build it up again with a gay lady? Silver and gold will be stole away. That's over my That's over my Lady Lee. Silver and gold will be stole away with the gay lady. Build it up with iron and steel. That's over my Lady Lee. Build it up with iron and steel with the gay lady. Iron and steel will bend and bow. That's over my Lady Lee. Iron and steel will bend and bow with the gay lady. Build it up with wood and clay. That's over my Lady Lee. Build it up with wood and clay with the gay lady. Wood and clay will wash away. That's over my Lady Lee. Wood and clay will wash away with the gay lady. Build it up with stone so strong. That's over my Lady Lee. Huzzah, it will last for ages long with the gay lady. Just all the gay ladies. It's a bit like all the single ladies, but all the gay ladies. And like, feel free to make anything sapphic. The next one is literally called Of All the Gay Birds, so I'm just going to continue on with the gay theme. Of all the gay birds I e'er did see, the owl is the fairest by far to me. For all the day long she sits in a tree, and when the night comes, away flies she. To wit to woo, Sir Knave to you, her song well sung, to wit to woo. There you go, gay owls. Katie, you haven't picked a number yet, and Stars, you also need to pick a number. Oh, Katie did it was 42. Thank you, West. I missed that. So we've gone diddling. Diddle diddle dumpling, my son John went to bed with his stockings on. One stocking off and one stocking on. Diddle diddle dumpling, my son John. The highest number you can go, Stars, is 139. Diddly diddly dumpty, a cat ran up the plum tree. I lay you a crown and fetch you down, so diddly diddly dumpty. No negative ones, no imaginary numbers. I don't know what a nice number is, Katie, but I'm happy for a nice number. West is whispering 69, so let's go 69. I had a little husband, no bigger than my thumb. I put him in a pint pot, and there I bid him drum. I gave him some garters to gather up his hose, and a little handkerchief to wipe his pretty nose. I bought a little horse that galloped up and down. I bridled him and saddled him and sent him out to town. 3 children sliding on the ice upon a summer's day. As it fell out, they all fell in, the rest they ran away. Now these little children been at home or sliding on dry ground. 10,000 pennies, thus 10,000 pounds to 1 penny. They will not all have been drowned. You parents all the children have, and you have got none. If you would keep them safe abroad, pray keep them safe at home. 42. I love that we've got to this level of numbers and I'm reading children's nursery rhymes. I already had 42, so I can't do 42. Do 20. Although I'll read you this one because it's got bats in it. Bat, bat, come under my hat, and I will give you a slice of bacon, and when I bake, I'll give you cake, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, number 20. Fiddle diddle dee, the fly shall marry the humble bee. They went to church and married was she, the fly was married to the humble bee. Fiddle diddle dee, fiddle diddle dee. I thought you'd like the bat poem. Little Tommy Tittlemouse lived in a little house. He caught fishies for other men's dishes. Buzz, quoth the blue fly, hum, quoth the bee. Buzz and hum they cry, and so do we. There you go. I'm going to pick number 24 because that's my favourite number. You need to learn from that bat and hide in hats more. Then you get cake. There you go, Katie. That's clearly what you've been going on all these years. I went up Pippin Hill. Pippin Hill was dirty. There I met a pretty miss. She dropped me a curtsy. Little miss, pretty miss, blessings light upon you. If I had half a crown a day, I would spend it all on you. 24 is my favourite number. Who would have guessed? I mean, it's not that hard to work out why. 101. 3 little titmouse sat on a tree, looking as wrinkled could be, till a boy came by with a big pop gun. Says he, I will shoot them every one. Their bodies will make me a nice little stew. The gibbets will make me a little pie too. Said the little titmouse, it will be shot if we stay. That they clapped their wings and flew away. Pussy cat, where have you been? I've been to London to look at the Queen. Pussy cat, what did you dare? I frightened little mouse under her chair. Little Jack Tandyprat was my first suitor. He had a dish and a spoon, and he had some pewter. He's linen and woolen and woolen and linen, A little pig on a string cost him 5 shilling. There you go. I'm going to go with a longer one because it's a good one. This is a house that Jack built. This is the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cow with the crumpled horn. It tossed the dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the maiden all forlorn that milked the cow with the crumpled horn that tossed the dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the man all tattered and torn that kissed the maiden all forlorn, that milked the cow with a crumpled horn that tossed the dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the priest all shaven and shorn who married the man all tattered and torn that kissed the girl all forlorn, that milked the cow from the crumpled horn that tossed the dog that worried the cat that killed the rat that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the cock that prays in the morn, that waked the priest all shaved and shorn, that married the man all tattered and torn, that kissed the maiden all forlorn, that milked the cow with the crumpled horn, that tossed the dog and killed the rat, that worried the cat that killed the rat, that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. This is the farmer sowing his corn, that kept the cock that crowed in the morn, that waked the priest all shaven and shorn, that married the man all tattered and torn, that kissed the maiden all forlorn, that milked the cow with a crumpled horn, that tossed the dog and worried the cat, that killed the rat, that ate the malt that lay in the house that Jack built. And now you know. The Rattling Bog is a more fun version of this type song. I don't know that off the top of my head, but feel free to send it to me. Let's see if it's in. I doubt it's in here, but I can check. No, it's not in here. Thank you, stars. Anyone got any more numbers? Some of these I will skip. Okay, I'm going to read this one just because it's got kittens in it. It's mostly for stars. Okay, 37, 47. No? Can you remind me of these numbers in a second, West? Okay, I'll read this one, I'll read numbers. Yes, that is correct, Katie, but I like your version too. 3 little kittens, they lost their mittens, and they began to cry. Oh, mammy dear, we sadly fear our mittens we have lost. What, lost your mittens, you naughty kittens? Then you shall have some pie. Mew, 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 mew. 3 little kittens, they found their mittens, and they began to cry. Oh, mammy dear, see here, our mittens we have found. Oh, found your mittens, you little kittens, then you shall have some pie. The 3 little kittens put on their mittens, and soon ate up the pie. Oh, mammy dear, we greatly fear our mittens have been soiled. Oh, soiled your mittens, you naughty kittens. And they began to sigh. 3 little kittens, they washed their mittens and hung them up to dry. Oh, mammy dear, look here, our mittens we have washed. What, wash your mittens, you darling kittens? But I smell a rat close by. Hush, hush. So, what was the first number? It was 40 something? 37. Tweedledum and Tweedledee went down to have a battle, for Tweedledum said Tweedledee had spoilt his penny rattle. Just then flew by a monstrous crow, as big as our tar barrel, which frightened both the heroes so, they quite forgot their quarrel. You will get in trouble if you spoil your mittens, Star, that's correct. And Katie, you will need to find some mittens. Is that so you can lose them, then find them and have some pie? Ding dong dell, pussy's in the well. Who put her in? Little Tommy Green. Who pulled her out? Little Tommy Tout. What a naughty boy was that, first to drown poor Pussycat. The Pussycat did not get drowned. And it was 74? It's called Pug, the Squirrel. The winds they did blow, the leaves they did wag. Along came a beggar boy and put me in his bag. He took me to London, a lady did me buy, put me in a silver cage and hung me up on high, with apples by the fire and nuts for to crack. besides my little feather bed to rest my little back. And what was the last one?
The last one is
34. Back and forth and back and forth. It's a flawless plan. It is. Sing song merry-go-round, here we go up to the moon, oh. Little Johnny a penny has found, so we will sing a tune, oh. What shall I buy? Johnny did cry, with a penny I found so bright and round. What did you buy? A kite that will fly up to the moon and through the sky. But when it gets there, it'll stay in the air. If the man in the moon, oh, should open the door and take it with his paw, we'll sing a love for tune, oh. I think that was it for things. That was the last number, I think. So I'm going to see if there's any ones that sound hilarious, and then we'll probably finish there for today. I've got the ball list. That's a very bad noise to make. I'm going to find one called gibberish. It's 145. In Furtaris, in oak nunnies, in mud eels are, in clay nunnies, goat eats ivy, mare eats oats. And that's the end of that poem. I think that's probably the end of the stream, unless there's anything else anyone wants to hear, or ask, or talk about. This technically is just chatting after all. One thing I will say is that I would like to start streaming on some Minecraft at some point, but I'm trying to work out when's a good time to do it. The obvious answer is for me to wake up in the morning and do it in the mornings before Western Stars get up, but that sounds like faff. If anyone has any suggestions of when would be good for them, do let me know. So if everyone is happy, I'm probably going to finish there. I don't know if it's worth raiding anyone. Let's see if anyone's going to use my phone. You would not be awake in one. That is true, Katie. If anyone's got any recommendations for raid, do let me know. If not, I shall end it there. And hopefully we'll see you next week. I still want to do the crafting one, but I'm not sure what's happening in regards to that. Solely because I still need to get hold of some matchboxes and some wooden cotton wheels, because people don't really use them nowadays, they're harder to get hold of. So West, I think we'll probably want to start ending the stream there. So bye everyone, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, evening, whatever time it is for you. And this will be up on YouTube if you want to rewatch stuff, so bye!